Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Scotland. We're going to head over to Glasgow and we're having a look at another beer from a brewery that I was very impressed with last time round, and in fact the last review that I did from this brewery was their first appearance on the channel. So for this review then we are going to go to Yoker, out to the west of the main city. Always makes me smile because I think of DD on the bus in Burnasstown, but we're having a look at my second beer from Overtone Brewing Company. So this one is the New England's Double IPA Azacca, coming in at 8% ABV. And the last beer that I tried from these guys was the Rwandan Coffee IPA, which I picked just because of how kind of quirky it sounded. But that beer, it really did work. It was beautiful, but the guys in the shop in Valhalla's Goat were telling me that you really need to try some of the hazy IPAs from these guys. So for this review I decided to go for something a little bit more kind of straight up, if you like. So hopefully it turns out very nice. Azacca is a very interesting hop, mainly kind of tangerines and oranges, but a little bit of tropical fruit as well from what I remember. So really curious to see how this one turns out. A brewery that's getting a lot of good press at the moment, and you know, rightly so based on the last beer that I had from them. So hopefully this one turns out to be another really quite nice beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on it. So let's see how we get on. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Overtone Brewing Company before. Hopefully we can add some more in the fairly near future. We'll need to see when my next trip to Scotland is going to be, but I'll try and make sure to review one of these every time I get home. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, usually whenever I come home. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about Overtone Brewing Company then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, Overtone Brewing Company are based in Glasgow, and the company was founded back in 2018 by Bo Wei Wang, who is originally from Beijing in China. So he'd been a home brewer for a number of years before he founded the brewery, and apparently the name is just taken from his love of music, you know, the overtone. But Bo Wei decided to hire Dan Miller, who's originally from New Hampshire in New England in America, as his head brewer. He had previously worked as a head chef, but he also worked as a brewer both in England and New York, and then he came to Scotland to work for 6 Degrees North, who are based in, I think the brewery's in Lawrencekirk, but they brew mainly Belgian style beers, of course, and the home bar of those guys is the Marine Hotel in Stonehaven, and they've got bars all across Scotland, but an awesome brewery that you should check out. But anyway, also involved at the brewery is Martin Connaughton, and he'd previously worked in the craft beer scene for quite a while. He worked in New Zealand, and he's now takes part in the brewing with Overtone, and he does a lot of other things for the brewery as well, from what I understand, some of the kind of business side of things. But the brewery itself can be found in New Albion, the New Albion Industrial Estate in Yoker near Renfrew in Clydebank, which, as I said, it's kind of to the west of the city on the north bank of the Clyde. But this brewery don't have a fixed range of beers, and they're always brewing different beers. And as of February 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, according to Untappd, they've produced just over 40 different types of beers. A lot of the beers that they produce are mainly the kind of hazy New England IPAs. Like I said to you earlier, they have the Rwandan Coffee IPA as well, and I think they've had a go at a couple of sours and things like that as well. I'm sure when I was through in Glasgow I saw one or two kind of sour beers from these guys as well, but a lot of people have been telling me this is a brewery that are very good when it comes to the hazy IPAs and things. But that's very understandable, of course, if Dan Miller is from the New England area in America. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Overtone Brewing Company for the moment. There wasn't too much more information available on these guys when I did my research. I tried researching again before I made this video, but still, that was all I was able to find for you. So yeah, if you want to learn more about this brewery, of course, you can check out the brewery website and see if there's any updates there. There's all the usual social media and things for these guys: Facebook, Instagram. I don't know if they've got a Twitter actually as well, but you can check those out to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And of course, you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to get more information on the different beers that they've done. But the best way to know what beers they're releasing is to follow places like Valhalla's Goat and things like that in Glasgow. Follow the beer shops on Facebook and stuff, and you'll get updates with all the different beers that these guys are releasing. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. That's all you really need to know about the brewery. So I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this again before we open it up. What you'll tend to find with Overtone Brewing Company is that their artwork is very similar, but for different beers it just tends to be different colours. So it's very kind of musical and almost a little bit psychedelic based in a way. I don't know if you can say that really. Peter over at the Clueless Drinker, who's more of an art buff than me, he'll probably be having a little bit of a fit at that. But it almost looks, the artwork on these beers almost looks a little bit kind of 70s retro type thing. It's 60s or 70s kind of vibe about the artwork on these beers. I really like it actually. So it tells you a little bit about the beer on the side here. As I said to you earlier, this one is a New England Double IPA coming in at 8% ABV. It says, our award-winning New England Double IPA has complex, freshly squeezed tropical and citrus flavours with a lingering hop bitterness that is balanced with malty character. The hops in this one are Eureka, Simcoe, Citra and Azacca. The malt base is Golden Promise, white wheat, oats and golden naked oats, and it also has a New England ale yeast strain to it as well. So yeah, looks pretty good. So Simcoe we know is a very soft kind of passion fruity hop. Citra we know is mangoes and quite a bit of tropical fruit complexity. Azacca, as I said to you, that's the main focus of this beer. Azacca is kind of tangerine and orangey. It can give you a little bit of tropical fruit as well from what I remember, like pineapples and stuff. And Eureka is kind of an interesting one. I remember that being kind of sort of stone fruity, like passion fruity and stuff like that as well. Not a hop that I've had too much contact with, I have to say. So we'll need to see how it turns out. But as I said, 8% New England Double IPA, and the Overtone Brewing Company New England Double IPA Azacca at 8% ABV. Let's get it out and we will get on with the tasting then. A lovely 440ml can, this one. So yeah, let's get it out and into the glass. There we go. This is going to have a little bit of head on it, but that's always a good thing. There's still maybe about a quarter of this or so left in the can, but we've got enough to start off the review. So as you can see with this beer, it's poured a lovely kind of, I would say this one's between the kind of yellowy and orange category, to be honest. You can see there's a solid finger and a quarter of a frothy cream coloured head. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but in terms of the colour, I definitely say it's on the darker end of the yellow part of the spectrum, very slightly getting into the orange, but you can see how opaque that thing is, and when it's a double IPA you would expect that. I always think when you go above 8% with these New England Double IPAs, that's when you start to have problems covering the booziness of them. You don't normally have that with the West Coast IPAs, but if I stick my fingers behind the glass there you can get some idea of how opaque this beer is. That is pretty damn hazy, I have to say. And you know, as you go up the alcohol percentages, you've got more malt content, so that just makes sense. The higher the alcohol, the more opaque the beer is going to be. But in terms of appearance, nothing overly surprising about this beer. When it comes to that, it looks very nice, pretty much as you would expect from any sort of New England hazy type IPA. So yeah, let's have a little look at the aroma then and see how we get on with this one. Oh yeah, straight away with this, the thing that really strikes me is it comes across as very wet and very juicy. So the fruits really come out on this one very well. The malt base, at the same time, it comes out really nice and smooth. You can really smell that lovely oaty creaminess to this one. It does have a little bit of the very smooth kind of white bready quality there, and it's very well balanced between that. The wheat gives you a lovely kind of straight up smoothness. Sometimes oats can give you a little bit of a kind of sweet creaminess to the beer, but I don't get so much of that with this one. This one comes across as really lovely and smooth and balanced actually, so kudos to Overtone for that. I think that the malt base in this beer has a very nice balance to it, and sometimes when it comes to the hazy IPAs, of course, that can be forgotten about a little bit. So yeah, maybe a little touch of biscuit in there as well, which I think would probably come from the Golden Promise. I've got the notes of the malts in here. I think Golden Promise, if I remember right, has a little bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive quality there, and the more that you smell of this beer, I think there's a little bit more of a kind of biscuity note comes out of it. But yeah, malt base on that is really quite nicely done. In terms of the green side of the hops then, for me, this one, it has a bit of floral character to it, but I think the grassiness takes over a little bit. So yeah, mainly quite a grassy character out of this, a little bit of floral note, and there is a wee touch of earthiness at the back, but I think it, as I say, the green side of the hops for me really lean towards the grassy part of the spectrum. But yeah, on the fruity side then, the fruity esters, again, you would expect this to be a little bit more kind of orangey with the, when they're calling it Azacca, you would expect it to be a little bit more orangey, but I actually find it really well balanced between the kind of oily, tangerine juicy oranges and the tropical fruits. It's quite well balanced in that regard actually. But as I say, Azacca can sometimes give you it can sometimes give you a lot of tropical fruit as well. If I remember rightly, Azacca is named after one of the Haitian gods. I think the Haitian god of farming or something like that. So just a random fact that's popping into my head. But the orangey note out of this, the more you smell it, the more it becomes oily, if that makes sense. But it comes across as quite juicy in the beginning. But definitely a little bit of a kind of pineapple-y note. You can pick up some of the mangoes in there from the Citra. I don't get so much of the passion fruit that you would normally expect from the Simcoe, but in fairness, the tropical fruits do come across as slightly kind of milky, and that's the thing I've always been used to with Simcoe, is just that almost milky creaminess you get from the fruits out of it. I've never had a beer that I can remember from Simcoe that doesn't have that real tropical smoothness to it. Eureka, as I say, that's supposed to give you a little bit more tropical fruit and things like that. Bit of a dry throat there, but yeah, the Eureka is supposed to give you a little bit more tropical fruit as well, and that probably having these three hops in it that lean towards the tropical side of things, along with the Azacca, which has its own tropical elements, that's probably why this beer has the oily orange at the back, but then the more tropical fruits coming out at the front. So tangerine oranges, like I said, definitely some mangoes, sort of papaya, apricot sort of thing, and I would say there is a little bit of pineapple to this one as well, particularly at the front of the nose. So yeah, quite an interesting, complex aroma coming out of this, so take a little bit of time and enjoy that for yourself. But let's have a taste of this one now then, and see how we get on. This one is the New England's Double Ipa Azacca from Overtone Brewing Company from Yoker, just out to the west of Glasgow here in Scotland. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål. Oh yeah, that's really pretty damn nice, I have to say. I can see why people are telling me you really need to have a go at some of these Overtone hazy IPAs. You know, obviously I'm more used to drinking the likes of Gamma from Denmark, or you know, Stigbergets and Dugas and things like that from Sweden. But you know, this beer is quite easily on par with those. This is really very, very nice, I have to say. If you come to Scotland and you see some Overtone beers and you're into your hazy IPAs, you can't really go wrong with these, I guess. I'd love to try something on the dark end of the spectrum from this brewery. As I always say, if you're trying a new brewery, you want like a stout or something like that, Imperial Stout or whatever, and you want either a West Coast or a New England style IPA, just to see how they do the different ends of things. But in terms of the light end of the spectrum with the IPAs, I can tell you they're if this is anything to go by, which I'm assured it is, then they're doing some good stuff. The Rwandan Coffee IPA was really a very quirky and good beer as well. So thumbs up to Overtone Brewing Company once again. I'd love to be able to review these more regularly for you, but it just kind of goes to show the Scottish beer scene has kicked on quite a little bit since I lived here back in 2013 or so. There's a lot of good stuff going on here now. So yeah, but yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this beer then a little bit. Straight away with this one, you can feel a little bit of that white bready wheaty note blanket in the middle of your tongue, but I find this one to be a very smooth New England IPA. You really get the kind of creamy oaty notes. They start to dominate the palate a little bit further into the flavour with this. If you go to the very centre of your tongue, you start to get some sweet kind of biscuity notes out of the beer, which is very, very nice. If we're comparing this to the big four over in the States, this is definitely more of a kind of smooth, creamy, treehouse type New England IPA for me. It's more leaning towards the creamy end of the spectrum rather than having a little bit of that wheaty bite like you might get from for example, Trillium. Alchemist, of course, are a bit more farmhousey, and Hill Farmstead I've not tried yet, but this is definitely a more kind of creamy, hazy New England IPA, but it works really nicely with the hop combination they've got in here. So yeah, not too much in the way of complexity from the hops and from the malts rather in this, but a very nice and well balanced hazy New England IPA for me. Try this brewery's beers. I've had two very good experiences from them now. On the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you will get a little touch of earthiness out of it, but really quite mild in fairness. As you come further forward along the side of the palate, that smooths out. You get some nice floral aromatic bitterness out of this beer on the front corners of the palate. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's just a little bit lighter and grassy. I would say that the floral notes aren't too prominent in this one. It does lean a little bit more towards the grassy end of the spectrum when it comes to the green side of the hops, but that, as I say, suits the fact that this beer is more creamy, and also the way that the fruits are coming out as well. So let's focus on those fruits now then. So yeah, fruit wise, if you go towards the back of that oily, as I always say, the fruity esters come out in that oily bubble behind the front curve of the tongue. If you go towards the back of that, you start to get a little bit of a kind of passion fruity note in there, and that'll be the Simcoe that's giving you that. It's not too dark right enough. You might, but the Citra, I'm sure, will be contributing to that. Citra can give you a little bit of a grapefruity note, but as you move further forward from that, you start to get a bit of the mango and things. It does have a bit of an apricot-y kind of papaya underlining as well. I don't find the oranges. I would expect when it's Azacca, you would expect a little bit more orange out of this, and in fairness, they are there. You can get the more oily orange notes on the very front tip of the tongue, but they're just not quite as prominent, pardon me, as I was expecting them to be. So as you come forward from that slightly darker passion fruity note there, it very quickly becomes mango-like. You start to get some pineapples and apricots and stuff out of this one. I think, yeah, papaya definitely suits this one as well. It's got that lovely light, airy kind of tropical note out of it, and the sort of tangerine orangey notes come out just almost on the very tip of the tongue too. But this is a very, very well balanced New England Double IPA. It's very, very smooth. At 8%, sometimes they can feel a little bit boozy, but this is lovely and smooth. But when Dan Miller is from New England, it kind of makes sense that he's good at this style. So not surprising. So if you want some good hazy IPAs in Scotland, Overtone Brewing Company are who you want to hit up. These guys are very well versed in this style for a very good reason. But yeah, I would also say, the more that you drink of this beer, in fairness, you do get a bit of that orange. When you take it in, you get a bit of the kind of tangerine orange in the beginning, then it transitions to be a little bit darker and tropical, and you start to feel the more sort of passion fruity, the kind of mangoey, the softer tropical fruits, they start to come out. So when the fruits come in, it's a bit orangey, then you get the darker tropical fruits, and then it smooths out really nicely to give you the pineapples and the papaya and mangoes and things like that too. So there's a good bit of transition with the fruits in this beer as well. But to sum it up, it's a lovely, very smooth, creamy and well balanced New England Double IPA. So thumbs up to Overtone Brewing Company for this one. They've pulled off a very kind of solid beer with this. So yeah, if you get the chance to try one of their New England hazy IPAs, I think you're going to be in for a bit of a treat. Very, really leaning towards the kind of treehouse end of the spectrum, if you like. It's fair to say that. I think my nose is getting a little bit blocked in this video for some reason. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say that this beer, it's at the top end of mid-bodied, bottom end of full-bodied. To be honest, I would say this is bottom end of full-bodied. Carbonation is very smooth. Malt base really builds this one up to be very thick. It's a very thick, kind of creamy New England IPA. This when it's a double IPA, you'd kind of expect that. In terms of hoppy bitterness, I think we're talking maybe 40 IBUs. With this one, it does have a little bit of that floral quality lingering on the edge of the palate. But yeah, a little bit of lighter grassiness too, but the bitterness, I would say about 40 IBUs. Middle of your palate is very smooth, does get a bit more creamy the more you drink of it. A little bit of the darker fruitiness to it, but it really smooths out very nicely as well and becomes a bit more juicy the further you go into the aftertaste as well. But a lovely New England Double IPA, this one, and definitely worth checking out if you get the chance. I'm guessing they've probably got other beers like you know, probably called New England Double IPA Citra or Idaho 7 or something like that. They've probably got a very solid base for these New England Double IPAs, and they just play around with the hop varieties and the malts a little bit and things. But this beer really is very nice, and it kind of shows you they're very capable in this style. So as I say, thumbs up once again to Overtone Brewing Company for this one, and this is another very new Scottish brewery who are doing some very interesting stuff. So definitely one to keep an eye on in the future, and hopefully I can review something from the dark end of the spectrum with these guys for the next video. So make sure you check them out. But let's leave it at that for this one then. This one was the New England Double Ipa Azacca, coming in at 8% ABV, a lovely, smooth, creamy and very well balanced, I think, New England Double IPA from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker, just to the west of Glasgow here in Scotland. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. As always, let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Overtone Brewing Company as well. Let me know some other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review, and I will catch you guys very soon. The New England's Double IPA Azacca, 8% ABV from Overtone Brewing Company in Yoker, Glasgow, Scotland. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out this beer, check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys very, very soon. Skål.